9 simple steps for elderly women to declutter all your piles of crap when you're super overwhelmed. Elderly decluttering tips. Meet Carol. She's 68, retired, and like so many of us, her home slowly turned into a collection of, well, everything. Books she meant to read, clothes that no longer fit, and boxes full of "I might need this someday." One afternoon she stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by piles, and sighed. "Lewis, I just don't know where to start." Sound familiar? Overwhelm is real, but you're not alone. Today I'm sharing 9 simple steps that helped Carol go from stressed and stuck to calm and clutter-free. These are practical tips anyone can follow, no matter how messy things feel right now. And trust me, step 9 might just be the game changer you need. Stick around, because this could be the fresh start you've been looking for. Welcome to Better Aging Advice for Elderly. I'm Lewis, a health and wellness advocate passionate about helping seniors live their best lives. Over the years, I've worked with countless people looking to stay active, healthy, and happy as they age. One thing I've learned: clutter isn't just about stuff. It affects your energy, mood, and peace of mind. That's why today I'm sharing 9 practical steps that help someone just like you clear the chaos, one pile at a time. If you're ready to take back control, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's jump in. Step 1. Start small. The one-drawer rule. When Carol first reached out to me, she was overwhelmed by the mountain of clutter in her house. "I don't even know where to begin," she said, and I could tell that the sheer size of the task had paralyzed her. She was stuck in that all-too-familiar place, facing a mess that felt impossible to tackle. But I gave her a simple piece of advice. Don't try to clean the whole house, just start with one drawer. You see, when it comes to decluttering, starting small is often the key to getting started at all. So Carol chose the kitchen junk drawer, the one that everyone has but nobody talks about. It was full of random receipts, mismatched batteries, old takeout menus, and pens that didn't work anymore. It felt like an impossible mess, but she decided to give it a shot. Carol set a timer for 15 minutes and began going through each item. At first, she was skeptical. What difference could one drawer make, she thought. But as she kept going, she found herself getting into a rhythm. The more she cleared, the more energized she felt. By the end of her 15 minutes, that once jumbled drawer was neat, organized, and, most importantly, manageable. Carol was amazed at how good it felt to finish even something as small as a drawer. "I can't believe how good this feels," she told me later. "I've been putting it off for so long, but now I feel like I can take on the next thing." That's the power of starting small. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. You don't have to take on everything all at once. In fact, trying to declutter your entire house in one go can feel like an impossible task. And that feeling of overwhelm often leads to giving up. But breaking the process down into small, manageable chunks gives you momentum. And momentum is the secret to lasting change. So, what's the next step for you? Start small. Choose one drawer, one shelf, or one section of your closet. Focus on that one area and finish it. The sense of accomplishment will fuel you to keep going, and soon you'll find that decluttering isn't as overwhelming as it once seemed. What's one small spot you could tackle today? It could be as simple as a drawer, a desk, or even a small corner. Drop a comment below and let me know what you're going to start with. Remember, every little bit counts, and you've got this. Step 2. Set a timer. 15-minute declutter bursts. When Carol first started tackling the clutter in her home, she felt overwhelmed by the idea that it might take hours or even days to make any real progress. "I don't have the energy for a whole day of cleaning," she said. And I get it. Decluttering can feel like an all-consuming task, especially when you're just starting out. That's when I suggested a simple solution. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes, I told her, and when the timer goes off, you stop. No pressure to keep going. She laughed a little at first, not believing she could really get much done in such a short time, but the idea of focusing for just 15 minutes seemed manageable, and she decided to give it a try. The next day, Carol picked a small area in her living room, nothing too big, just a side table full of old papers and random knickknacks. She set the timer, and to her surprise, when the timer went off, she had made significant progress. The table looked clearer, and she felt more accomplished than she had in weeks. What started as a tiny burst of effort had created a visible change, and that simple success gave her the motivation to tackle more. After a few more 15-minute sessions, Carol couldn't believe how much she was getting done in such a short time. "I can't believe how much I get done in 15 minutes, she told me, almost laughing at how easy it had become. It turns out short bursts of focused effort are incredibly effective. By setting a timer, she took away the feeling of exhaustion before it even started. The task became a series of small, manageable steps instead of an endless mountain to climb. That's the power of breaking it down into smaller chunks. When you set a timer, you give yourself permission to stop when time's up. This takes the pressure off and makes the task feel less daunting. You're not committing to hours of work, just a brief period where you can give your space a little TLC. This approach also helps you stay focused. When you know you only have 15 minutes, you're more likely to stay on task. And when you see that timer go off, there's a sense of accomplishment that keeps you motivated to keep going. So, if you're feeling like decluttering is a full-day job, try setting a timer for just 15 minutes. You might be surprised at how much you can do in such a short time, and it'll make you feel like you're winning every time that timer dings. How long do you usually spend decluttering? Type 5, 10 or 15 in the comments. Let's see how many of you are ready to take on the 15-minute challenge. Step 3. The 3-box method. Keep, donate, toss. When Carol first started her decluttering journey, one of her biggest challenges wasn't the mess, it was the decision-making. She would pick up an item, stare at it and feel completely unsure of what to do with it. "I might use this someday," she'd think, or "this has sentimental value." And then she'd put it right back in the pile. That's the trap many of us fall into, the maybe pile. And before you know it, the clutter just keeps growing. So I introduced Carol to the 3-box method. This is a simple yet powerful strategy. Get 3 boxes and label them keep, donate and toss. That's it. No, maybe pile allowed. It's a simple rule, but it makes the decision-making process so much clearer and faster. Every item you pick up falls into one of these 3 categories. The moment you eliminate the maybe pile, things start to move. Carol was skeptical at first, "But what if I'm not sure?" she asked. I explained, "That's the point. If you're unsure, it probably doesn't need to stay." The beauty of the 3-box method is that it forces you to be decisive and not overthink. If it's something you truly love and use, it goes in the keep box. If it's something you know someone else could use, it goes in the donate box. And if it's just junk or broken, it goes in the toss box. The first time Carol tried the 3-box method, it was eye-opening. She started in her bedroom, picking through piles of old clothes and items. And before long, 2 full boxes of donations had stacked up. She was amazed. "I didn't realize how much I was holding on to for no reason," she said. The clarity of the process had helped her see that many things were taking up space for no real purpose. By the end of the day, Carol felt lighter and more in control. The decision fatigue had disappeared, replaced by a simple, actionable method that she could repeat over and over again in different rooms. Instead of wondering what to do with each item, she was able to focus on the things that truly mattered to her, and the rest was easy to let go. This method works because it eliminates that overwhelming maybe pile. And once you start categorizing everything, you'll realize just how many things you're holding on to for sentimental reasons or because you think you might use them someday. Most of the time, we don't need them at all. So, if you're feeling stuck in your decluttering journey, try the 3-box method. It might just be the boost you need to make quicker decisions and see real progress. What's the hardest thing for you to let go of? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear what items you struggle with parting ways with, and let's chat about why we hold on to them. Step 4. Declutter sentimental items last. One of the most common challenges Carol faced during her decluttering journey was parting with sentimental items. She had a stack of old birthday cards, letters and trinkets from her past that she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Every time she picked up a card, memories flooded back and she'd feel a deep emotional attachment. "I just can't do it," she said as she stared at the pile of cards, each one holding a story. I completely understood. Sentimental items carry emotional weight, and it can be incredibly difficult to let go of things that feel like a piece of your history. But here's the thing. Holding on to too many of these items can make the decluttering process feel like an emotional roller coaster, and it can cause you to stall before you even get started. That's when I suggested a simple strategy. Save sentimental items for last. I explained to Carol that while it was important to acknowledge the emotions tied to these items, she shouldn't start with them. Instead, I told her to focus on less emotionally charged categories first, things like clothes, kitchenware, or old magazines. By doing this, she could build momentum and get used to the idea of letting go of things. Once she'd gained some confidence and clarity from decluttering more neutral items, she'd be in a better mindset to tackle the sentimental ones. Carol took my advice and dove into the less emotional clutter first. Over the course of the week, she made significant progress. Her kitchen counter was clearer, her closet had fewer things she didn't wear, and her living room felt more spacious. But when it came to those old birthday cards, she still hesitated. A week later, I got a call from Carol. "Lewis, I finally did it," she said, sounding proud. I let go of the cards from people I barely remember. It wasn't easy for her. But because she had built momentum by starting with other, less sentimental items, she was able to approach this task with a clearer head and a stronger sense of purpose. The key takeaway here is this. Don't make sentimental items your first priority. They can slow you down, create emotional blocks, and keep you from making real progress. By leaving them for later, you can ease into the decluttering process, build confidence, and approach sentimental items with a clear mind. When you're ready, it will be easier to let go of things that no longer serve you. It's important to remember that just because something holds sentimental value doesn't mean it needs to take up space in your home. It's about honoring the memory without holding on to the physical item. Do sentimental items slow you down? Type yes or no below. I'd love to hear how you approach decluttering your sentimental things and if this strategy works for you. Step 5. The 1-year rule for clothes. When Carol opened up her closet, it was like stepping into a time capsule. Clothes from decades ago hung in neatly organized rows, many still with tags, others so out of style that they looked like they belonged in a museum. I asked her, "When's the last time you wore this?" She picked up a floral blouse from the back of the closet, paused for a moment and finally admitted, maybe 10 years ago. It was clear that she had been holding on to clothes she no longer needed, simply because they had been there for so long. The truth is, many of us do the same thing. We hang on to items in our closet that we haven't worn in years, telling ourselves, "I might wear it someday," or "it's a classic." But what happens? It just sits there, taking up space and making our closet feel cluttered and overwhelming. I introduced Carol to the 1-year rule, a simple but powerful guideline. If you haven't worn an item in the past year, it's time to let it go. It doesn't matter if it's trendy or holds sentimental value. If you haven't reached for it in the last 12 months, it's probably time to donate it. At first, Carol was hesitant. "But what if I might wear it again one day?" she asked. I gently reminded her, "If you haven't worn it in the past year, it's highly unlikely you'll wear it in the next one." After a few more minutes of thinking, she agreed to give it a try. We started pulling out clothes piece by piece. She held up a jacket she hadn't worn in ages and, without much hesitation, placed it in the donate pile. Then another blouse and another dress. By the end of the day, Carol had filled 4 large bags with clothes to donate. She was stunned by how much she had parted with. "It feels like I can breathe again," she said, smiling with a sense of relief. Her closet now had room to breathe, and for the first time in years, she could actually see what she had. The 1-year rule works because it forces you to be honest with yourself. If something hasn't served you in the past year, there's no reason to keep it hanging around. The goal is to simplify and create space in your closet and in your life, so you can focus on the things you truly love and wear regularly. Decluttering your wardrobe can be incredibly freeing. It's not just about getting rid of things, it's about making room for what truly fits your life today, not the past. And once you start seeing your closet with fresh eyes, it becomes easier to maintain. What's the oldest thing in your closet? Comment below and let me know if you're ready to tackle your wardrobe with the 1-year rule. I'd love to hear about that one item you've been holding on to for way too long. Let's chat. Step 6. Tackle paper piles with a system. One of Carol's biggest sources of stress was her paper piles. Bills, old magazines, handwritten notes, recipes she'd never tried, and papers she thought she might need someday. They were everywhere. Her desk, kitchen counter, and even the dining table had stacks of paper threatening to overtake the house. Every time she walked past them, she felt overwhelmed. "I can't keep up with it all," she said as she stared at the never-ending clutter. I totally understood how she felt. Papers have a way of accumulating faster than we can manage. It's easy to let them pile up, especially when you're not sure what to do with each one. But here's the thing, those paper piles aren't just cluttering your space, they're also cluttering your mind. Carol wasn't just overwhelmed by the mess, she was mentally exhausted from constantly seeing it and wondering what needed her attention. So, I introduced Carol to a simple system that helped her regain control. We set up 3 clear folders: to do, to keep, and to shred. It was a straightforward way to categorize everything without overthinking it. Here's how it worked. 1. To do. This folder was for anything that required action. Bills that needed to be paid, appointments that needed to be scheduled, or tasks she needed to follow up on. 2. To keep. This was for important documents that she had to keep, like tax forms or insurance papers. Anything she might need to reference in the future went into this pile, but it had to be useful or important. 3. To shred. Anything that was outdated, irrelevant, or personal information that was no longer needed went straight into the shred pile. No second guessing. If it wasn't useful, it was out. The key to the system is the speed of sorting. We didn't sit and go through every single paper in depth. We just quickly categorized each one. Some papers ended up in the shred pile with no hesitation, while others went straight into to do or to keep. Carol was amazed by how fast she was moving through the pile. In just an hour, her desk was cleared and she could actually see the surface for the first time in months. The best part? As she looked around at her newly decluttered space, Carol said, "I didn't realize how much mental space those papers were taking up. It feels like a weight has been lifted." It's true. Paper clutter doesn't just clutter your space, it clutters your mind. Once she had a system in place, Carol not only cleared her physical space, but also freed up mental energy to focus on things that mattered more. This system works because it's simple, actionable, and easy to maintain. When you have a designated place for everything, it's easier to stay on top of your papers without feeling overwhelmed by them. If you're struggling with paper piles, this method can work wonders. The next time you find yourself buried in paper, give this system a try and see how much lighter you feel. How many paper piles do you have right now? Type the number in the comments. Let's see who else is dealing with paper clutter and share ideas on how to manage it better. Step 7. Go digital when you can. Carol's home was filled with more than just piles of clothes and papers. She also had boxes upon boxes of photo albums, receipts, and old documents she had accumulated over the years. Every time she opened one of those boxes, it was like a flood of memories and old records. Some were precious, like family photos, while others, like old receipts for items she could no longer remember, were just taking up space. One day, while sorting through her piles, Carol said, "I just don't know what to do with all of this. Some of it is important, but most of it just takes up so much space." That's when I suggested going digital. Why not scan the photos, receipts and documents and save them on your computer or in the cloud? At first, Carol was skeptical. "I don't know, Lewis. I'm not really good with technology," but I assured her it wasn't as complicated as it seemed. We started with her family photos, those that had been collecting dust in photo albums for decades. I showed her how easy it was to scan the photos using an inexpensive scanner or even a phone app. She could then save them to a cloud storage service like Google Drive or Dropbox, making them easily accessible without taking up physical space. Once Carol got the hang of it, she was amazed at how much space she was freeing up. All those bulky albums were now stored digitally, and she no longer had to worry about them collecting dust or taking up room in her closet. It was like a weight had been lifted. "Why didn't I do this sooner?" she said, clearly relieved and even a little excited. Not only did she save space, but now she had a digital backup of her precious memories, secure and easily accessible. Carol also started scanning important receipts, tax forms and documents. She set up a simple file system on her computer with folders for each category so she could quickly find whatever she needed without sifting through paper. The best part? Now Carol could keep her physical space clear while still having access to everything she wanted to preserve. Digital storage allowed her to hold on to important things without them taking over her home. And because cloud storage is accessible from any device, she could easily share her family photos with loved ones or find receipts when needed. Going digital doesn't mean you have to get rid of every physical item, but it's a great way to reduce the clutter and free up space while keeping important records or memories at your fingertips. Have you tried going digital? Type yes or no below. I'd love to know if you've used digital storage to declutter and how it's worked for you. Let's share tips on making the transition smoother. Step 8. Ask for help. You don't have to do it alone. As Carol made progress with her decluttering journey, she began to realize something important. She didn't have to do it all by herself. After weeks of working on small areas of her home, Carol hit a roadblock. Her garage was overflowing with boxes of forgotten items, old furniture and tools she hadn't used in years. Every time she stepped into the space, it felt too overwhelming to tackle alone. One afternoon, as we talked about her progress, she said, "I get stuck because I don't want to do it by myself. It's just too much." That's when I reminded her, decluttering doesn't have to be a solo project. You don't have to do this alone, I told her. Ask someone to help you. That's when Carol had a light bulb moment. She called her daughter and asked her to come over that weekend to help with the garage. They set a plan together, and when the weekend arrived, they tackled the garage as a team. With her daughter's support, Carol felt more energized and motivated to keep going. They worked side by side, laughing, reminiscing about old memories as they sorted through items and made decisions faster than Carol ever had on her own. By the end of the weekend, Carol had cleared out half the space in her garage. "I didn't realize how fun it could be with company," she said, a big smile on her face. It was clear that having someone by her side made the process feel lighter and more manageable. Not only was the work getting done, but they were also able to bond and enjoy the experience together. It was no longer a chore. It had become a shared activity full of laughter and encouragement. The truth is, decluttering can feel like a daunting task when you try to do it alone. But having someone there to offer support, help with decision-making, or just keep you company can make all the difference. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or even a neighbor, the act of decluttering becomes much more manageable when you're not carrying the weight of it alone. Sometimes we think we should be able to do everything by ourselves, but there's no harm in asking for help. And more importantly, it can make the whole process more enjoyable and faster. Who helps you when you declutter? Tag them in the comments. Share the love and let them know how much you appreciate their help. It might just inspire someone else to reach out for a helping hand too. Step 9. Celebrate every win. Progress over perfection. As Carol moved through her decluttering journey, she kept running into one hurdle: perfectionism. She worried that her house would never be perfect again. Every time she cleared a pile or donated an item, she'd start thinking, it's still not enough. There's more to do. But I reminded her that perfection wasn't the goal. Progress was. The truth is, we often get stuck in the idea that everything has to be flawless, that every corner of our homes must be pristine for us to feel like we've succeeded. But that's not how decluttering works. It's about taking consistent steps, no matter how small, and celebrating each one. Every bag donated, every drawer organized, and every pile cleared is a win. These little victories add up, and they matter more than a perfect outcome. For Carol, the turning point came when she finished her bedroom. She had worked through piles of clothes, old books, and miscellaneous items that had accumulated over the years. When she looked around at her newly organized room, she had a moment of realization. I'm proud of myself, she said. a genuine smile lighting up her face. I never thought I'd say that. It wasn't the perfect room she had envisioned, but it was a room that reflected her hard work and progress. That moment was key. Carol had learned to appreciate the progress she had made rather than striving for an unattainable perfection. And that mindset shift, celebrating each step, made her feel accomplished. Each cleared space, every decision to donate, was a step toward a lighter, more organized home. It's easy to get discouraged when you're overwhelmed by clutter. But if you focus on the small wins instead of the overwhelming total picture, you'll start to see that even the smallest efforts are making a difference. Remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. And every step forward is something worth celebrating. So, the next time you declutter, take a moment to appreciate the work you've done, no matter how small it may seem. Because progress, no matter how incremental, is still progress, and that's something to be proud of. What's one thing you decluttered recently that made you feel great? Share it below. I'd love to hear about your small victories and how they've made a difference in your space and mindset. Which of these 9 tips are you going to try first? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear about your journey. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button so more people can discover these tips and start decluttering their own spaces. Let's spread the word and help others feel less overwhelmed. And don't forget to subscribe. This is just the beginning. Next time, I'm sharing even more tips on how to organize your home so it stays clutter-free and peaceful long term. You won't want to miss it, so make sure to turn on notifications too. See you in the next video. Let's keep making progress together.